In moral situations, we can't always rely on what's fair. Being fair means we settle the score no matter what. We want to be treated fairly as much as possible, of course, but sometimes the right choice, the choice to break the chain, won't be fair to ourselves. Sometimes my YouTube career feels like the KPSS station. I'm not sure whether my content is just trash or folks just aren't picking it up on the radio waves. Before getting into the deep end, this is not a Fallout related channel particularly, but I am a huge Fallout fan and I hope to talk more about it here. I started a series recently called Levelism where I analyze my favorite level design elements of my favorite games. My most recent 2-part episode was on Lego Batman and focused a lot on the art direction and atmosphere of the game. I took a lot of elements from 2 levels and I basically created this entire model scene inside of Unreal Engine. So I'm planning to do something very similar but for Fallout as well. If any of that interests you, then subscribe. Keep in mind, I will be making pretty much no money on this video until I get to 1K subscribers. I can't monetize my videos until then. So please subscribe if you like this video. Recommend it to friends or anyone who you think would like this type of content, and thank you for watching. Fallout has a special place in my heart. My first Fallout game was Fallout New Vegas, and I played it when I was around 10, which is kinda no wonder why I'm a psycho. Honestly though, since I was so bad at games at that age, the RPG parts kinda flew over my head. I didn't really care that much. What truly captivated me was the world itself. Without really experiencing New Vegas other than walking around, I eventually was able to borrow my brother's Fallout 3, and that's actually when I truly became obsessed with Fallout. I know Fallout 3 is consistently criticized, and when it comes to narrative or RPG mechanics, I can certainly agree, but I've never really understood the backlash against the art direction of Fallout 3, which is probably the best thing Bethesda has ever done for Fallout in its entirety. This debate is probably something I could do in another video. With Fallout, there was something so immersive and unique about this world that I had never experienced in any other. I might have seen The Walking Dead or I Am Legend or something like that, but those just weren't as interesting to me, and maybe that was because they just felt too similar to our world. Fallout, on the other hand, was pitched as a historical retro-futuristic apocalypse, as in this isn't just our world in the future, this is a retro-fiction, a butterfly effect type of split that occurred in the 1950s and 60s. A split that made the Fallout 21st century different to ours. Some say the particular difference was the lack of a microchip in the 20th century, causing computing technology to lag behind for decades. And an emphasis was made on the design of these technologies to make up for the unfortunate bulkiness. Eventually a microchip was invented though, but so late that the design choices of the past held their influences. That's why we have futuristic technology that is way more advanced than stuff we have today, but it has this kind of retro 50s look to it. Whether or not this actually makes sense, if this world is truly practical, isn't entirely the best question to ask. What really matters in Fallout isn't necessarily the practicality of its technology or creatures or anything like that, but the realism of its character-driven choices, philosophical debates, and exploration of all things related to the human condition. Fallout exists to criticize the way we are today. As a Fallout fan, I nearly lost all interest in the series' future after Fallout 4 and 76. It was clear that what I wanted from Fallout wasn't a part of its marketed identity anymore. I was no longer the intended audience, and so I was ready to move on. It's fine, I mean, it's not meant for me, and I wasn't gonna play it. When the show was announced, I was kind of expecting the same thing. The marketing material showed sets and props modeled specifically after Fallout 4, and I was inclined to believe that to match the market of Bethesda, the show would be similar in narrative complexity. But I was actually wrong. While I wouldn't say it's perfect, I was genuinely surprised by the quality of this show. With so many game-related movies and shows getting destroyed by pretentious filmmakers, I couldn't even get past the 3rd episode of Halo. I'm happy to say that this isn't the case here. Even if I don't agree with every single event in the context of the games, it's pretty clear that the intention was to respect the source material, but not just reiterate that material over again. This show knew what themes to reintroduce and revitalize, but also where to differ. I was so worried about the Brotherhood of Steel, who was somehow still managing to exist at this point, but they portrayed them really well. The Brotherhood operate under the guise of heroism and responsibility to protect humankind from itself by taking or destroying technology that could reproduce the Great War. But in doing this group has formed a cult so strict in their ways that they have become fascistic towards outsiders and the inhuman. Their ignorant philosophy, one that doesn't allow for any gray areas, somehow finds a way to stop human progress at all cost. Maximus was such a great character and highlighted everything that I just said, highlighted perfectly what was wrong with this society. Him, like many others with him, are fueled by something outside of the morals that the Order wants people to believe. Maximus is simply fueled by vengeance, not by collecting technology or whatever. His best friend is fueled by fear, not by sacred duty. The Elder Cleric is fueled by the need for power and revitalization, not by the old order. The internal battles within the society perfectly align with their enemy as well. Once I realized that the show was set in the West, I found it extremely odd that there was no mention of the NCR in the trailer. This was the biggest faction, yet it seemed mostly oriented around the Brotherhood of Steel. I was annoyed that the NCR was being sidelined just to focus on a more Bethesda-related faction that can be plastered all over adverts. What we got in the show was a lot more nuanced than just a simple rejection of the NCR. History has repeated itself once again, and the NCR is a crumbling empire trying desperately to return. The destruction of Shady Sands, which was the previous capital, is a consistent theme throughout the show and ties into every character in some way. It's probably the single most important event. I'm really glad that the show takes its time to reveal information and different perspectives on the aftermath instead of just revealing it all so bluntly. In fact, that mystery element really impressed me. Sure, the gameplay and role-playing elements of the games can't really be adapted in a show, but something is there, intended or not, that reminds me so much of the experience of Fallout. When you enter a town, especially within the older games, it's a huge puzzle to find out what's going on. Usually there's some kind of conspiracy in every society that requires patience and socializing to uncover. This kind of mystery extends to the games as a whole too. I mean, in Fallout 1 and 2, there was like these bulletin boards that you would go up to kind of give you a hint of how to get started in each town. The Fallout show does a great job of having us learn information as the characters like Lucy learn it. There's so much we don't understand about this world, about the timeline of events, and how it fits together into the canon, but the show doesn't just rush an explanation, it doesn't just give us fan service. In other words, it wants us to vibe out the explanation, even come up with our own hypothesis beforehand. Going back to the NCR, there is a consistent theme throughout the show about how good people can be corrupted, that even despite holding on to noble goals, they will end up doing horrible things in the end that will change them forever. It's the classic Fallout 1 lesson, and it's something that shows up in a lot of other shows, movies, works, and stuff. But I feel like this show takes it a bit further than it normally is. I really feel like the writers here understood what they were doing with the NCR. The NCR was nowhere near perfect as a nation. You know, imperialism isn't that amazing. But they were trying their hardest out of anyone to make the Wasteland a more bearable, free place. Despite the innocence of Shady Sands, the conditions almost reaching a pre-war level, I mean, they built this from scratch. This wasn't just a pre-war city, this was the first city built after the war. Despite this gem of hope of progress, someone had to come in and destroy it, in the blink of an eye. In the Wasteland, there is no good explanation to a lot of the things that occur, a lot of the trauma that occurs. Fairness is simply not expected. Morality is rarely considered. Lucy throughout the show is just now understanding this. She pleads with people, trying to understand how they can do such cruel things without even considering what is right. Cooper the Ghoul explains to her that this attitude towards the existence of some kind of goodwill has an expiration date. I think how the process of this selfish nihilism manifests itself in people can be attributed to Vault-Tec and Cooper Howard's perspective in the pre-war sections of the show was probably the most interesting element in it. The series shows us more of what this world was like, kind of mirroring the late 1900s Red Scare, but 100 years later. It shows that there was actually a group of people who were well aware of the true state of America, that the war was manufactured and easily avoidable. People are coming to realize that the American dream isn't real and that corporations have far more power than even the government, an institution that isn't much better in practice. I've often been annoyed at Bethesda's use of pre-war America. Like, it's obvious that it's all like propaganda, hyper-capitalist crap, but they never truly explore the societal issues in America. Sure, we can uncover little hints of things in government offices and such, but what was really going on in people's lives? The satirical nature of pre-war America is often so exaggerated that it stops becoming a legitimate critique of it, but kind of just a joke that can be ignored. America today is said to be prosperous, a land of opportunity, but when I walk in downtown Atlanta, I don't exactly see a perfect reflection of that. The system can be called the best in the world, but there will still be those left in the dirt, and those people are all over, from the unclean sidewalks to the high-rise apartments. What I love most about the Fallout show is that it provides a meaningful lesson, I think, one that actually made me reconsider values I've had. We can recognize the pain found in those abused by powers beyond them. We can understand the need for vengeance when the moral compass is stripped away. The mutants of Vault 4 face decades of forced experimentations. Lee Moldaver watched as the best example of democracy the Wasteland had was destroyed. Maximus's entire childhood was taken in Shady Sands. He has endured and participated in the unfortunate need for a cycle of bullying and abuse in the Brotherhood. Vault 32's perfect, safe little life was invaded by the worst of humanity. Stephanie's husband died. Cooper watched with his own eyes as the world got destroyed and has been wandering for over 100 years hoping his family survived. All of these characters and many more have had something terrible happen to them, and as an individual or a group, they have to answer an extremely important question, the most important question the show has to offer. Do we break the chain? Vault 33 has to decide what to do with their Raider prisoners. Do we do what they would have done to us? Vault 4 has to decide if they should treat the refugees of the NCR with hospitality after what they've been through. Maximus has to decide if the collateral damage of supporting the Brotherhood's mission is worth it if it means hurting those who hurt him. Moldaver had to decide to put the innocent inhabitants of the Vault at risk if it meant giving the Wasteland an infinite power source. Lucy McLean had to decide whether or not the ghoul who made her walk for days without water in order to sell her was worth saving. Lucy and arguably many others in the show were able to break the chain, have the willpower to not continue the cycle of violence. Others fail, sometimes in very horrible ways, sometimes in very understandable, hard ways. We understand why Moldaver allowed the cycle to go on again. The goal, a utilitarian one, was just so valuable that it overruled the goodwill of Vault 33. I mean, think about it. Would you put a few at risk for infinite power for millions of people? I love to see power return to the Boneyard after 200 years. I felt the anger at the destruction of Shady Sands, but I'm confident that Moldaver's noble yet flawed actions will come back to haunt progress once again, and I think that will happen in Season 2. In moral situations, we can't always rely on what's fair. Being fair means we settle the score no matter what. We want to be treated fairly as much as possible, of course, but sometimes the right choice, the choice to break the chain, the cycle of violence, abuse, or heartache, won't be fair to ourselves, but it will ensure the fairest possible future for those after us.